But let's talk about Man City winning 1-0 against Patrick Vieira and Crystal Palace. What is your initial reaction of this win, of this victory for Man City? Was it a deserved win, a deserved 3 points for Man City? What did you think?
I think it's a relief for them that they found a way, right? I mean, it's one of those games that I think we'd be singing praises of Crystal Palace if they saw it through, for whatever reasons, right? As a former player, I'll say, yeah, I mean, they had a tactic, they had a plan. Obviously, they had almost zero possession, defended well, until obviously a silly penalty, because it was silly from Olise. Defensively, they didn't get it right. A corner, a kind of short one when Gundogan, everybody fell asleep, and then Olise wanted to help, and ultimately didn't really help because it caused Manchester City to score. But in the end, if you find a way, fair play.
It's basically Man City's mantra, right? Just find a way to get that victory. And as you mentioned, that late penalty for Crystal Palace, I mean, they did so well defensively, but just the tiny details, one tiny mistake can be extremely costly. And we're going to be talking about Palace and what they're going through right now in a second. But let me ask you something, Giannis, because I know that you have some good thoughts about this one. Erling Haaland scored his 28th goal in the league, 34th in all competitions. Clearly a great goal scorer, but he didn't really do much in terms of the overall productivity of the game. How did you see his performance today?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen those games. I mean, if it's not for a penalty, we would probably go and having a hard go at him. I would. I mean, I'm still gonna, because he doesn't make a difference in these games. I mean, look, when it's easy, he scores all these goals. Again, 28 goals on the season. That's great. But, the games against Leipzig, Southampton, Manchester United, when it was hard, when City were dropping points, there's probably a couple other ones. We've seen this type of Haaland that he just doesn't do enough. And this was yet another game. Had a great look, a sitter early on. I think it was Ake, right, when he squared him the ball in the first half, when he put it over the crossbar. But in between, you just don't see him. He doesn't make enough of a difference. So I will have a problem with it, simply because I think Manchester City plays differently, and I just don't enjoy his play within the game. Right, you don't see him enough in that second half. Hardly a mention of him. But ultimately, he scored from a penalty. So it's easy to forget because of the number of goals, but I just don't think he makes enough of a difference in games.
Yeah, aesthetically speaking, strategically speaking, it may not be pleasing on the eye, but in the end, as you said, a goal is a goal and 3 points are 3 points. It's a very important week, Giannis, for Manchester City. You got RB Leipzig, then Burnley, which is the Vincent Kompany derby, of course. But how do you see Man City now? Do you think that they'd have enough to at least push until they have to face Arsenal again? Or is this overwhelming, overloaded schedule, is this going to be a problem for them?
Well, why should that be a problem? I mean, look, if you have De Bruyne on the bench, you have Alvarez on the bench, and you have Riyad Mahrez on the bench. No, I think, look, we've often talked about Manchester City and if not prioritizing the Champions League, if you kept some players on the bench for whatever reasons, right? Because you can make a case that De Bruyne has been kind of, maybe not at his best last 2 or 3 games. But if you're going to prioritize that, why not? I think going into the Leipzig, they're still favorites. 1-1 may not have been the ideal result, but I think good enough for City to go through in this one. But there are issues for Manchester City, just like in this game. If Pep Guardiola is going to continue to say that Nathan Ake is a fullback or a good fullback, he isn't. Neither is John Stones. It's good to see him back in the lineup, but those are issues, and Crystal Palace took advantage of it. I wonder if Leipzig was watching this, if they have a plan, because Palace actually allowed City to play in the wide areas because they knew the fullbacks, if you say, aren't going to cause them the problems. Because, Ake going forward and Stones going forward, it's not ideal. It's nowhere near close enough for a club like Manchester City to have these type of fullbacks. Kyle Walker had some issues off the pitch this week. Obviously, he hasn't been at their best. So there's a reason why Arsenal have a chance to win the title. And, you'd urge Arsenal, go on and take it, because they may not be another time where they're going to have this sort of opportunity, because Manchester City are good, but they're not great.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Arsenal in a second as they play Fulham, of course. And like Giannis said, the pressure is added on them, but they clearly have both hands on the wheel right now. Very quickly in Crystal Palace here, Giannis. They still haven't won a game in 2023. We're going to be talking about the relegation fight in a second, but they're a little bit of a distant past from what we remember of them last season. Are they in more danger than we think, regardless of the fact that they remain 12th?
Yeah, it seems like, last 2, 3 years or 4 years, the same story all over again, no matter who the manager is, right? In the middle of the table, but never safe enough. And Patrick Vieira wants to talk about playing well and expensive, because that's the way I remember him when he was here in New York, maybe the first season in Nice as well. Then it fell apart for him. It's almost kind of the same here. I mean, a lot going forward, not enough defensively, although today you have to give it to them that really they secure the center of the pitch. I think players like Gundogan and Bernardo Silva try to force things through the middle, because, as I mentioned, there was not that much in the wide areas. So they did look good defensively, which is often not the case with Crystal Palace.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.